From Del Mar to Middletown, Bombay Hook to the Brandywine, Dover to Wilmington. This is the Caesar Rodney Institute Policy Podcast. Today, CRI Communications Director Sam Friedman talks with John Williams, Vice President of the Center for State Fiscal Reform at the American Legislative Exchange Council, on why Delaware's financial outlook is painfully negative. Here's Sam.
John, can you talk a little bit about the Rich States, Poor States Almanac that you put out every year and what exactly you're trying to find with that information?
Well, this is the 8th year now that we've conducted the research on Rich States, Poor States with Arthur Laffer, of course, Ronald Reagan's economic advisor, and Stephen Moore of the Wall Street Journal's editorial board formerly, and now with the Heritage Foundation. And we put this research together to give legislators and the general public and taxpayers across America a tool to use to see how their state compares competitively from economics competitive standpoint with the other 49 states. And we know that states are in competition with each other every day for new jobs and new businesses and new opportunities. And we wanted to give states really a barometer as to how they stack up versus the other 49.
I took a look at Delaware for this year's almanac that you had us at 32nd for economic performance. But then you ranked us 38th for economic outlook, which was a drop from 27th last year. Why did Delaware drop?
Yeah, this is really something to be concerned about if you're a Delaware taxpayer, because Delaware is one of the biggest drops of any state in economic competitiveness in the last year. And you look at things like recently legislated tax changes, for instance. There's only been several states in the country that have increased taxes more between 2013 and 2014 than Delaware. Also, you see things like the minimum wage change, and you see that affect competitiveness pretty dramatically as well as things like remaining tax burden, which is one of our 15 equally weighted factors, and that's everything outside of income, property, and sales tax. All the other taxes and fees paid by Delaware taxpayers, that is dead last, 50th out of 50 in the country.
Speaking of tax increases, the state of Connecticut just voted themselves a massive tax increase. And now a bunch of businesses, including General Electric and Aetna, are threatening to leave the state. I guess let's start with the first part of that. Can you tell me what is the real problem with what Connecticut did and why these tax increases just don't work?
Well, first of all is, I think it's really incredible that some of these major companies that are publicly traded based in Connecticut are going public with their disagreement with policy. In this business, you find it's very rare that businesses will go out on front of the media to say, we're going to leave the state if you do X or Y. And to see two of the state's really long-time companies that have been pillars of the community in Connecticut for quite some time talking about leaving, I think, that is just an awful sign that this is really a tax increase over the top. I know GE CEO Jeff Immelt said that taxes have been raised 5 times since 2011, and of course, usually it's couched in such terms that if you raise taxes this year, we'll make sure we don't in the future. And so this is really a sad state of affairs for a state that 25 years ago was a state without an income tax. We forget about that. Connecticut was the last state to adopt a state income tax from a state that didn't previously have one.
Let's assume those businesses do decide to just hit the road and get out of Connecticut. Of the states that so far have expressed interest, who do you think is the most likely to get those jobs and why?
I would say there's obviously many factors that go into play for business relocation decisions, but judging just on the fiscal situation of a state that's in the mix, I know Mike Pence in Indiana also threw his really hat into the ring there to attract them. And Indiana's got a very favorable tax and budget climate. They've improved dramatically over the last few years in Rich States, Poor States, moving up to number 3 in economic outlook from number 24 just several years ago. However, I think Florida makes a very, very strong play. I mean, Florida has been a state, as well as Texas, is 2 of the biggest job magnet states over the last decade. And I think one of the reasons why is that both of those states, Florida and Texas, go without a personal income tax altogether. And also, they've been cutting business taxes, both of them. Texas just did once again this legislative session, and it looks like Florida will follow suit. So if I were to be a betting person, I would say Florida would probably have the inside track on those companies just because of its great tax climate.
speaking of rich states, poor states, we would like to let the audience know that Stephen Moore will be in Delaware on October the 1st to speak at a CRI event. Check our website for more information. Thank you so much, John, for coming on with me.
Absolutely. Glad I could join you.
All right, thank you. That was John Williams, the Vice President of the Center for State Fiscal Reform at the American Legislative Exchange Council. You've been listening to the Caesar Rodney Institute Impact Delaware Policy Podcast. Visit our website, caesarrodney.org, for the latest news, information, and learn more about what you can do to impact Delaware. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Sam Friedman. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.